participate in this webinar, Field Report, Emergency Community Engagement in Missoula County, Montana. Today, we are fortunate, if I can get the slide to move, we are fortunate to have Nick Holloway as a speaker. Nick joined the Missoula County Office of Emergency Management as Projects Coordinator in 2012. Prior to that, Nick managed the Missoula Area Medical Clinic. In his role at OEM, Nick developed and coordinates Missoula County's Volunteer and Donations Management Program, which plays a key role in disaster recovery efforts and community resilience. During disasters and exercises, he has an active role in Missoula's Emergency Operations Center, the EOC Call Center, and the Joint Information Center. Nick is a member of a regional Type 3 incident management team serving as a public information officer. As part of his daily administrative tasks, Nick is responsible for outreach and promoting whole community emergency preparedness and public education for Missoula County's Smart 911 program. In his time off, which he has, I believe, occasionally does have time off, Nick enjoys hacking up huge divots at the local golf courses, teaching his 7-year-old son the virtues of life and sports, and catering to his wife's varied whims. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Nick.
Well, thanks, Don, and hi, everyone from Montana, where it's been cold and wet over the last few days, but thankfully we're drying out now and warming up. So first, I'm going to talk about a few ways to reach out and engage partners in our community, how we do it. But I'm not a marketing expert. I kind of learned all this on the fly a little bit, and this is not an all-encompassing presentation, just sort of the best of what we do, and we can discuss what you guys do and your best practices at the end. I'd love to hear from everyone on that. So next slide, please, or excuse me, we're on the next slide. A little bit about Missoula. We're a large county, 2,600 square miles roughly. We face a variety of different threats, including wildfires on a yearly basis, floods. We almost flooded the last few days. We've had some pretty severe windstorms in the past couple of years, which I'll talk about in a little bit. And our top concerns, we recently identified our top concerns as part of our pre-disaster mitigation plan 5-year update, and so they are wildfire, hazardous materials, flooding, severe weather, communicable disease, for us, avalanche. We also have earthquake in there, and dam failure. And I suspect that a lot of those threats are the same for a lot of your individual jurisdictions. Our population is about 112,000 in the county, with about 72,000 of those people residing in the city. So we're concentrated in our urban center, and then we're dispersed a little more thinly as you move out. Next slide, please.
Hey, Nick, let me interrupt here. I forgot to mention that if you have questions, there's a GoToWebinar panel on the right. If you can enter your questions in there, we'll answer them during the webinar if we can, but if not, at the tail end, we'll take that. My apologies for interrupting, Nick.
Oh, no problem. Thank you very much for saying that, Don. So how we got here, in 2012, in February of 2012, we adopted Smart 911 and replaced our existing reverse 911 system with Smart 911 and started promoting it to folks. And then shortly thereafter, maybe a year or so later, we brought on Smart Prepare and Rave Alert as the trio of services that we provide our constituents. And we do report our alerting items to the LEPC. Whenever we have an alert, we talk about it in our local emergency planning committee so that our community partners and our response partners hear about those alerts, but also know about what they're being used for and when they should and when they could be used and how cases are resolved. And we'll talk about our alerts here in a minute or so. So next slide, please. We do have 3 tiers of alerts in Missoula County, and the first, most basic tier is called a means alert. It stands for Missoula Emergency Action Notification System, and it's used to notify local media and other agencies of weather and road closures. It's urgent information, but not typically emergency situations. It's widely distributed and it's not targeted. And it's that crawl that you often see across a television screen or what you might hear on a radio. And it's best used for road closures and severe weather and just widespread urgent but non-emergent incidents and warnings. Second, and this is where a lot of our bread and butter alerts are, is the Rave alerts. And obviously you might know this is geo-targeted, and it's used for a variety of things such as missing persons, warning residents of dangerous suspects that may be in their neighborhood, evacuations, neighborhood incidents, and it's very good for reaching specific groups of people like those in the access and functional needs population. And so we use Rave alerts probably most of the time when we're alerting. Next is the IPAWS or WIA alerts, wireless emergency alerts, and these are really widespread non-targeted alerts for the whole area in which we would only really use in the case of a widespread community disaster or warning of a possible impending disaster. So that's what we use our alerts for, and our emergency personnel are well acquainted with which alerts to use. Next slide, please. So some use cases of these alerts, of Rave alerts specifically, are evacuations. We, in August of 2016, we had a wildfire up in a drainage called Grant Creek, and it's a one-way in, one-way out drainage with a lot of people living up there, and it went up fast, and it really was a wake-up call to a lot of people in that area. And so we used Rave alerts to let people know that they needed to get out. We also at the same time send deputies door to door, but we use every mode possible to get that alert across, and Rave alerts is very, very helpful in that. We've used it for other evacuations with impending wildfires too, and that's a regular thing out in our neck of the woods. Another time we've used it is during a windstorm. In August of 2015, Missoula experienced the convergence of 2 storms right over the western side of the city, and that resulted in outflow winds with gusts up to 74 miles an hour, and that's a big, powerful windstorm that did a lot of damage, and that created widespread power outages and fires around town from down power lines. The 911 system was flooded, and we actually sent out an alert telling people not to call 911 unless they had a true emergency, not just to tell us that power was out. So that was helpful in that regard as well. It's another good way to use Smart Prepare, in that case during the power outages, is to look up people that have signed up for Smart 911 and share their information through Smart Prepare and find out who may need extra help because they're reliant upon powered medical devices. Those people in the access and functional needs community who may need extra help because there's no power and they're reliant upon powered devices. So it's good for that. And obviously it's good for missing persons, and that's probably where we use it more than anything else, is for missing persons. And we've been lucky and fortunate in that we've found all of the folks that we've put alerts out for, and we do issue a resolution alert. So if people do receive one of those targeted alerts, they also know that the person has been found and they don't need to keep their eye out for them anymore. Next slide, please. Again, we talk about access and functional needs. This is a group of folks that we really encourage to sign up for Smart 911 and sign up for Smart Prepare, because we think that they may need some extra help, of course, during evacuations, and with what we just talked about, some of them being reliant upon powered medical devices. This can be up to 50% of any community's population when you consider that older folks and children are also in that group. It's not just disabled folks or mobility impaired or blind, eye impaired, seeing impaired, or hearing impaired folks. It's children and it's older folks too. So this is a significant group of people when we consider all that. Next slide, please. Here in Montana, we have a lot of people that have livestock and animals, so we want to make sure that they know what to do with their animals in the event of a wildfire. We have to take care of those critters, and so we can alert folks that have signed up to Smart Prepare and just filter it down to folks that have livestock and let them know where to take their animals in the event of an emergency. We use other means as well to get that messaging out. We use our public information officers, and we use social media and regular media to get all that information out, but emergency alerting is also a way that we could do that. Next slide, please. So, but having said all this, obviously alerts are only as effective as the number of people signed up. So we try and keep folks engaged. We try and keep a certain level of top-of-mind awareness, or TOMA, out there by putting it out through social media and other venues on a fairly regular basis. We also, especially during emergencies, put out a message for a call to action to really try and drive people to sign up for Smart 911. As part of all that regular outreach, we're going to ramp up our messaging during flooding season, before flooding, or during wildfire season, so that people are ready when it comes. Occasionally, we have a PSA that we keep in the bag that we've put out there around the Christmas and holiday season during movie releases and the summer hits. We know that a lot of people are going to spend time there, so we want to get that message across then. Perhaps, though, the most important place that we can get our Smart 911 and alert messaging out is when an incident happens, or immediately after an incident happens. We have a saying, never waste a disaster. So when there is a fire encroaching upon a neighborhood or a drainage, we'll send our deputies and fire folks up to just tell people to be ready. They may or may not be evacuated, but as part of that messaging, we always tell them about Smart 911. We try and tell them 3 points, and one of those points is always sign up for Smart 911, so that if deputies are not able to get to you and tell you that the evacuation is occurring now, this is another way you can receive that messaging. And that is probably one of the most effective ways that we get drive signups. We do fairly decently with a steady stream of signups during the year and during those events I just mentioned, but when there's flames in your backyard, that really gets people moving, and our signups probably go up tenfold at that time. So just-in-time signups are pretty inexpensive and really, really effective, and we really highly encourage them. As I said before, everyday messaging creates top-of-mind awareness that reinforces this incident-based messaging that I'm talking about. Next slide, please. For the everyday messaging, we utilize a variety of partners. We have the conventional partners that you just have to have in your back pocket. Fire folks, law enforcement folks, emergency medical folks. Access and functional need groups are important. The DNRC, that stands for Department of Natural Resources and Conservation here in Montana, but every state has some equivalent of that. And all of the PIOs are aware of Smart 911. We have law enforcement PIOs and county PIOs and hospital PIOs and other PIOs in Missoula. So you really have to have those folks, and I'm sure everybody is aware of that. Some of the less conventional partners, though, really add a lot to it when you're trying to reach out to the community and engage folks about Smart 911. And one effective way we've done that is to talk to our county treasurer. When people go to sign up to register their cars every year in our treasurer's office, they get a Smart 911 brochure that we've created. And we've created this brochure in the size of a number 10 envelope so that it fits nicely. And that way we can get more pieces for a better price, but also whether it's an employer putting these pieces into their envelopes or the treasurer's department doing car registrations by mail, they can just slip that in the envelope, and that really works nicely. So that reaches everybody with a car in Missoula County, which is a huge part of the county, obviously. So that's a big deal. Scouting groups are a big deal. Volunteer organizations active in disaster, or community organizations active in disasters especially. Those are groups you need to interface with, and they interface with a lot of the population. And really to explain what Rave alerts are to them and what Smart 911 is to them really gets some good buy-in and allows you to have sort of a force multiplier when they help you spread the word. Safe Kids Missoula, or Safe Kids Worldwide, has branches all over the country. In Missoula, it's called Safe Kids Missoula, and there's a lot of great partnering opportunities there. And there's a few events a year that they put on that we participate in, and we, as the Office of Emergency Management and 911, we're kind of behind the scenes a little bit. We're not on the front line like law enforcement and fire, but we really like to be a part of those types of events because they allow us to come out. So we partner on those. We don't necessarily lead the charge, but we partner in on those. In Missoula, we've had refugees coming in the last year or so. So we've talked to the International Refugee Center and Soft Landing Missoula, two organizations that help people get established when they get to our community. And part of that getting established is what to do in an emergency. So we give them that information. When the city of Missoula sends out alarm permits through our police department, they slip one of those little number 10 flyers that I just mentioned right in with the envelopes. That gets the message out. The health department nursing staff can visit door to door and talk to people about it. And these are also people that might be members of the access and functional needs community that they're talking to. So that gets it out. You've got your critic clubs, you've got the Elks, the Moose, the Eagles, all those kind of clubs that meet on a regular basis. They're often looking for folks to come in and talk to them, and they are very engaged people that have a lot of energy. So if you go talk to them, you can get the word spread out a lot further. And they're also oftentimes business owners who can help show some value to their employees by showing them they care, that they want them to be prepared in an emergency. So that's a nice group. And of course, you've got your Chamber of Commerce and business safety committees that also are good venues. The bottom line, though, I think, is that to have good partners in spreading the word and getting it out there, you have to be a good partner. You have to attend and participate in committees and coalitions and help spread the word about others' projects so that they'll buy into your own project. And it's very satisfying, and it helps network you in the process. So it's really good to interweave with as many groups as possible. Next slide, please. So some of our best practices, we've worked with a public relations consultant in the past, and their expertise can act like a force multiplier. And it also, I told you in the beginning that I'm not an expert on this and I don't have formal training in marketing. The insight that this public relations consultant provided was very helpful. They said we need to use a media mix and track our results. They give you information like you might say, I'd like to advertise during the evening news. Well, they might say, well, let's do it on the Sunday evening news because that not only is a little less expensive, but it's watched by more people. So they gave us a lot of great tips like that, and they also might be able to get discounts from the volume of ads that they do with various vendors. And so it really, they might be cheaper than trying to do it yourself in a piecemeal type of way. And I certainly think they do provide value if you look at what they do on a per sign-up basis, cost per sign-up basis. Another thing we've done in the past is used grant dollars to pay for promoting Smart 911. We've used it to educate the public on what Rave alerts can do for them and about emergency preparedness and how Rave alerts fits in with the core capability, the FEMA core capability of public information and warning, which is part of the National Preparedness Goal. We have a few PSAs in the bag. When we get anything produced for promotion, we own it, and so we can use it again and again. So that reduces some future costs. We have PSAs in the bag. We have various advertisements in the bag that we can use and pull out anytime we need it. Let's see. Next is including Smart 911 and Rave Alert messaging on all incident-based releases. We talked about that just briefly here before, but that's really a big key that shows the public that we really believe in it and that all of our emergency responders are behind it and that they need to do this when an incident occurs. And we, as I mentioned, we leverage other departments within our level of government, the DMV, the Treasurer, City Alarm Permits. We talked about all that, but that is a really strong way to go about things. And one thing we always tell people in this day and age when people worry about being hacked and we hear about hacking incidents all the time, we let folks know that there's never any financial information entered into Smart 911 or asked for, and we believe that removes the vast majority of incentive for hackers. So we think without that there, it really makes it a safe thing for folks to sign up for. Next slide, please. So when you are partnering up with folks and creating a campaign to educate the public about Smart 911 and Rave alerts, it's good to set goals. And goals help you know where your money is being used most efficiently and what might be worth repeating and what might not be worth repeating. And so when you set goals, SMART goals work very well. They're very specific. What exactly are you trying to do? They're measurable. This is the most important, one of the most important things. How well is it working? They're achievable. That keeps you motivated. Relevant. Is it doing what you need it to do? Is it aligned with your objectives? And they're timely, time-bound. Will you have so many signups in a month, or will your signups increase by X% in a monthly period after you start a media campaign? So I really think that helps, and in order to illustrate that, you can come up with a spreadsheet, which I'll show you a screenshot of what we've done in the past here in a minute, but let's go on to the next slide for now, please. So the metrics that we measure are the delivery modes, whether it's print, radio, television, social media, whatever it may be, the number of signups, and we get those on a daily basis from the Rave admin site and enter it into our spreadsheet. And then what we're really looking for is the efficiency of the delivery mode, which ends up being the cost per signup. And the cost is divided by the number of signups for any particular day. And so next slide, please. So this slide just shows you some of the things we've done and the signups that we've seen when we've done them. And this is a really helpful way to measure that and look at it and know where to use your money, your grant money or your money, your department money to promote and educate people about Smart 911. So it's been effective for us, and we really like doing this, and we're glad to be partners with Smart 911 and getting the message out. And I believe that's all I have for today. So if anybody has any questions, we'd be glad to talk them over.
Hey, Nick, thank you very much. There were a couple of questions. The first one is, it says, I understand you have grant money, but where do you get the rest of your budget for all these activities?
Well, I'm fortunate to work in a community that is committed to this, and since we're threatened by wildfire on an annual basis, we know the importance of emergency alerts. And our county commissioners have, and our department head has graciously committed to supporting the cause. And you know, these grants we get, they're a 50-50 match, so we still have to provide 50% of the money. But if you count in the fact that a lot of advertising agencies will discount this as sort of a PSA a little bit, you can even increase your reach with that.
Thank you. Next question. Does Rave Alert share the data with Smart 911?
Does Rave Alert share the data with Smart 911? Not sure exactly what you mean by that question, but Smart Prepare, which is part of Smart 911, you can filter that down to get just to people that may have certain access and functional needs like mobility issues, and only send an alert to those folks with those mobility issues, or only send an alert to those folks that are reliant upon powered medical devices. So yeah, I guess it does share if you think of it that way.
And last question, on your wildfire and your windstorm, how successful was your alert process, and could you measure it?
We can only measure it. It's kind of difficult to measure. I mean, we can measure how many alerts we got out, and we can measure to whom those alerts went to. In the case of the windstorm, we didn't have anybody respond and say that they needed extra help. So that's nice. In the case of the wildfires, it's hard to know where they got the evacuation alert from, whether it's Smart 911 or the responders going up and down the streets, or through regular media or social media. So we have a hard time measuring that. We just know that Smart 911 is a very important piece of that, and we try and put it out in as many pieces as we can so we can reach as many people as we can.
That's it for questions, and I think we're right at the half-hour mark. Nick, I want to thank you very much, and just as a note, this webinar has been recorded, and it will be available within a day or so. Nick, again, thank you. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to share this with us, and look forward to working with you as we go forward.
All right. Thank you very much, Don.
Thank you, and again, thank you all for taking time out of your day to join us. Enjoy the rest of the day. Hello?